Hello, another day, another job, and this one is about relocating the starter battery. When I installed the lithium batteries, I had to find another place for the starter battery, so I decided to move it on the other side of the bulkhead. And I also wanted to add another spare starter battery and a selector switch between them. So I now need to start removing these batteries. This is the actual starter battery. And if I move that to the other side of the bulkhead, I can actually fit another lithium in here, so another 24 volt 50 amp hours. So our friends on the boat next door, Swift, they were throwing out a battery box which just so happened to be almost the perfect size to fit in the well of the companionway, and so it just needed a little trim, and I'm going to drill a few holes in to get those battery cables through, but it means the battery, the starter battery, can move to the other side of the bulkhead and be nicely snug in a proper battery box. Most of the weight is being taken by this bar here, which is reinforced with these upstands on both sides, and then I'm just putting this across here to support the fiberglass battery box. So first of all, I needed to drill some holes for the cables. Right, there's no way I'm going to get these out there. These grommets are glued in place. These are the wrong size lugs anyway for the battery. They should be M8, not M10s. But before that, I had to cut the lugs off the old cables. So these are the solar cables from the flexi panels we've got on the deck. Probably don't give much more than 1 amp, but seeing that there is no lithium setting on it, we just use it as a trickle charger for the starter battery. So the battery box has turned out to be the perfect size really, because it leaves just enough gap behind there to put a vent pipe. So what I'll do is I'll probably put the vent pipe here and then put it through this bulkhead and then tee it off on the other vent pipe in the other battery box at the back, and then that vents to the surface. So I slightly modified the elbow joint so it would fit flush with the inside of the battery box, and drill a hole for the new pipe. So the elbow still stuck out a little bit into the battery box, so it needed a trim. So I've drilled a hole. I think I've drilled it too low because it's going to dip down through the bulkhead and then back up again, which is obviously no good because hydrogen and battery gases kind of rise. I'm just going to have to take the wood that I've just drilled out from here and use that as a plug. I'm going to fill that gap in and re-drill it. It's a bit frustrating that I've drilled a hole in a boat and now I've got to block it up again and then drill another one. So water makes the plastic slightly more malleable when fitting it to a joint fitting. And this pipe led from the elbow joint of the battery box to the new T-joint in the existing vent pipe. Unfortunately, I lost the footage for that particular bit, but it's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. I cut the pipe to length and then fitted it onto the elbow joint. I initially tried Gorilla Glue, but when that didn't work, I had to resort to the big guns and use some 2-part epoxy glue. So this is the job I started way back in Panama, and it was a kind of a spillover from installing the lithium batteries. I kind of needed to make some extra space and then move the engine battery to the other side of the bulkhead. I couldn't get hold of any plywood at the time, or any decent plywood, so I just cobbled together a few pieces and pulled it down, thinking I would get some plywood somewhere across the Pacific. Anyway, that never happened, and now we're on completely the other side of the Pacific in New Zealand, and now I've got a plentiful supply of plywood, so I'm actually going to finish that job off. I should never have left that job the way it was, because it was an unventilated battery box, and every now and again I would just kind of lift it up and make sure everything was all right, but obviously that's not the best case scenario. So I'm going to finish off the battery box and then maybe get a spare engine battery in there as well, just as a backup. So when you're working in a boatyard, you've got to make anything your workshop, and so I found this old trailer that's kind of abandoned in the corner, but it makes a perfect worktop. It's got everything. It's got like anvils and a flat edge and everything you need. So as everybody involved in boat maintenance knows, there is no straight edges on a boat, and even the curved ones aren't exact, so there's always inevitably a little bit of trimming to fit things in. So I'm just giving the whole thing a paint with some stained polyurethane resin. So I'll give that about 3, maybe 4 coats, and sand it down in between each coat. It's turned out a bit lighter than what I thought, a bit grayer, but it's going to be in kind of a dark corner anyway, so you're not going to notice, hopefully. So then it was time to fit the top. In the end, I had to make up some new cables, as the existing ones just weren't long enough. I then had to reorientate the existing battery to fit with the new battery and the selector switch.
4 days over the weekend, yeah, that's cool.
Partnership with Open University 2023 on Radio 4. On this week's show.
Now, because I'm ready.
Only to find I had to remove the top again to through bolt the selector switch. So I'm just pre-assembling the switch. Once the switch is in place, I can't get the lugs behind it. So what I've done is I've drilled through the back of the battery box, and I'm going to bolt those in place, because there's quite a lot of tension on the battery cables, so I don't want that to pull out the switch. I've also put in a couple of battens as well, just to stop the batteries from sliding about in the box. I pre-wired the common live in place before installing the switch. So the switch is a 4-way switch which selects the individual batteries, both batteries at the same time, or isolates them both. With 3 terminals, 1 each for the batteries and 1 common live, which goes to the 12-volt side of the main isolation switch. This is the solar from the flexi panels on the foredeck, and they're pretty much gone now. They probably only give about 1 amp at most. It's a little trickle charge that probably helps somewhere along the line. Then I fitted the 2 lives from the batteries to the switch. So a final check to make sure everything was working. So that's it, both batteries working. Just a reminder, the reason I did this was because we've got a 24 volt system with lithium batteries. If for any reason that the engine battery packs up, it's not possible to jump start them off at 24 volt. Just a little bit extra security for starting the engine, because we have run the batteries down before, mainly because we've left the ignition on when the engine stopped. Which basically drains the battery. I think it leaves the glow plugs on or something. So I just need to get off all of that old Sikaflex and clean it up a bit, and then put the top on, and then I can put that job to rest. So the only thing I want to do now is put some plastic sheeting over there, just to save it for the drips, because here we want to store the life jackets, and at some point I want to put a shelf across there and put the flares and other safety equipment, so we've got this one-stop shop for the grab bag and all safety equipment. But that's the batteries done. That's another job to tick off the list, and just need to move on to the next job. If you did find this video useful and you're the type of person who likes to return a favour, you can now buy me a beer by using YouTube's new thanks button, which you'll find below this video. So thanks for watching, and a special thanks to our patrons who really keep us going. So if you'd like their help with our blogging efforts on this channel and our Mothership sailing channel, just check out the links to Patreon or PayPal in the description below, or check out the crew shirts and mugs in our merch store.